Saturday afternoon, June 23rd. 12 boys and their soccer coach head into the rugged mountains of northern Thailand for a trek. They pose for photos before riding to the Tham Luang cave, a place they have visited before. They are expected to return home to their nearby village later that day.
A dozen members of a youth football team and their coach are missing after they entered a cave in northern Thailand.
Investigators believe the teenage boys and their coach crawled into the cave and they never came out.
Search and rescue crews are on the scene trying to locate the boys.
It's believed the team has been trapped by a flooded stream near the cave entrance.
Within 24 hours of the boys going missing, a search operation is underway. The boys' bikes and backpacks are found near the entrance to the cave, which becomes ground zero in the search. Distraught family members gather.
ก็อยากให้ปลอดภัยทุกคนเนาะก็คาดหวังก็มีเหมือนกันค่ะก็อยากให้น้องเขาออกมาปลอดภัยทั้ง13คนนะคะ
The Tham Luang cave is a 10-kilometre-long limestone cave system with deep recesses and narrow passageways. Most of the year it's relatively dry, but when the monsoon comes, it quickly fills with water. And when that happens, the cave is impossible to enter or to leave. The water levels are now rising, and the boys cannot swim. The night after the boys are reported missing, the Thai Navy's elite SEALs diving team join the search. Working around the clock in pitch darkness, they wade, swim and dive through the black waters. At the same time, agencies and volunteers begin the mammoth task of pumping water from the cave and surrounding area.
They could survive for 5-6 days, but the water now, the flood water is getting higher and higher. So it'll only be a point in time where this cave here, even the entrance, will close.
By day 3, the search has escalated into a major military operation. Hundreds of searchers scour the mountain for alternative entry points into the cave.
ความลึกคร่าวๆประมาณ 6-700 เมตรครับ
หมายถึงว่าแนวดิ่ง
ลงไปครับ
เกือบกิโล
แต่ว่ามันมีชั้นของช่องแต่ละชั้น
ไม่ได้ดิ่งตรง
ใช่ครับ
ก็คือเป็นสเต็ปไปเรื่อย
ๆมันสามารถพอลงไปแล้วก็พักแล้วก็หย่อนไปได้
The hope is the boys and their coach have made it to a location clear of the rising water.
คือพื้นที่เป้าหมายถ้าน้องๆว่าเป็นที่เขาเรียกว่าเป็นโถง3เป็นพัทยาบีชเนี่ยตอนนี้ยังไปไม่ถึงครับก็การดำเข้าไปเนี่ยขอเรียนทราบว่า1ถังเนี่ยไปประมาณ200 เมตรครับแล้วระยะทางทั้งหมดก็ประมาณก็หลายร้อยเมตรอยู่แต่ทำอย่างเต็มที่ครับเราใช้การหมุนเวียนนะทำตลอดไม่ได้หยุดพัก
สำเร็จแล้วพี่น้อง
All the relatives can do is pray.
ครับขอให้น้องๆทุกคนปลอดภัยครับเพราะว่ายังเชื่อว่าทุกคนยังรอดชีวิตอยู่ครับ
After 4 days, there's still no sign that the boys are alive. The Thai Navy SEALs are unable to navigate the labyrinth of tight passages filled with murky floodwater. Thai authorities call for international help.
Yeah, so it was Wednesday morning. I was still at the house. It was about 5:45 in the morning, and my director of operations, my number 2 guy at the squadron, called and said, "Hey, sir, I'm sure you're tracking that there's a soccer team stuck in a cave in Thailand. Be ready, because we were being notified that we might head out." And I thought, awesome, that's exactly the type missions that we want to be called up for.
The next thing I knew, we're all loading onto an MC-130. It's one of our aircraft, and we're flying to Thailand.
Landed at about 1 o'clock in the morning on the 28th of June, and then key leadership pushed straight to the cave site.
Did you guys go into water? No, we tried to go into the cave. They pulled us back like about 50 meters.
So we go into the cave, and it was completely dark, and I'm walking in thinking this is so surreal. I mean, it's so dark. A few of us had headlamps. I did not, so I'm trying to tag along as closely as I can to some of the other members of the team. But I could just sense oh my gosh, there's 12 children and a coach in here. And I'm just in the entranceway, and I'm spooked out. I can't even imagine.
2 British cave divers have also been called in by the Thais. Rick Stanton and John Valanthan are considered the best in the world and are the first to dive deep into the cave. They brief the Americans on the daunting task ahead.
The technical experts from the United Kingdom, they had begun diving much sooner than us, and getting their feedback was also invaluable. Those were when the rain levels were the highest, and they were saying, hey, in cave diving, you have to be able to lay line, you have to be able to have a way out if you're going in. And they were saying the currents right now are not manageable. We've been battling to try to move forward. The rains are still falling, the flows are getting higher, the visibility is 0, the water's cold. Let's take a minute, everybody take a deep breath, and let's come at this from a collective perspective of how can we tackle a really complex problem that I think over the next few days and even weeks we realize has never been done before.
On Sunday, July 1st, a break in the rain allows the rescue dive team to set up a base inside one of the cave chambers. The British divers forge deeper into the cave. Far below the surface, they swim against strong currents for 1.5 kilometres. And then the moment that seems like a miracle. Almost 10 days since they first entered the cave.
Yeah, best you can. How many of you? 13. Brilliant.
Backpack is he going inside?
No, not today. Not today. There's 2 of us. You have to dive. We are coming. It's okay. It's okay. Many people are coming. Many people. We are the first. Many people come.
What day?
Tomorrow. No. What day is it? No, okay. Monday. Okay, but 1 week and Monday. You have been here 10 days. 10 days. You are very strong. Very strong. We need to go up. Okay, go back. We come. I know, I understand. We come. Okay, we come. We come here. We have been diving for 1 half. Yeah, tomorrow. But we hope tomorrow. The Navy SEAL will come tomorrow with food and doctor and everything. Today you have a light. We give you more light. You go up. Oh, that's okay. Up. That looks fun.
I am really happy.
We are happy too.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So where you come from?
England, UK.
Oh.
Initially, it's a huge sigh of relief. Okay, the boys were able to find a high enough ground. They've survived this long, you know, with some of the higher flood levels in the cave. But then it was scary because we realized how far back they were in.
There have been diving rescues that are done consistently and cave rescues that are done consistently, but cave diving rescues are very rare, and none of them have ever been done with 13 people 2.4 kilometers into the earth.
The families feel like their prayers have been answered, but it turns out their ordeal has only just begun. The boys and their coach have been without food for a week. They're tired and afraid. The only way out of the cave is by diving, and as far as we know, the boys can't even swim. After locating the boys, the British divers Stanton and Valanthan call in reinforcements from home.
I'm a member of the British Cave Research Council diving team, so that's how I got called in.
And when you hear that it's 12 children and a young coach, they're in this situation, what's your first thought about the options or the viability of getting them out?
The first thought is they're not going to get out. I mean, the kids, we've done recoveries before with live people, and it's all about panic underwater. You can tell a kid whatever you want, but in an actual situation where you've got a kid underwater, they're more than likely going to panic. So at first we thought it's not possible to actually dive them out.
Jason Mallinson's first dive into the cave confirms his fears.
You're swimming against the current on the way in, so usually on the way in the visibility is not too bad. And usually fine, the first diver, but the first diver's finning, and that finning creates eddies in the water, which stirs up the silt, and then the second diver doesn't get such good visibility. And then the third diver gets even worse, so by the time you've got a fifth or a sixth diver in there, they're down to nil visibility. And then when you get to the end of the cave and you turn around and come out, you're with the current, so anything that you stir up at the end of the cave is going to flow all the way out with you, so you tend to have a much worse visibility on the way out. So it's a bit of a sort of a combat course on the way out. In sort of, sometimes you can only just feel the line, sometimes you can see a foot in front of you, other times it's just nothing, it's all by braille, and you're trying to remember all these line traps. So it's quite a sort of mentally exhausting experience to go there and back.
It's a story of a human determination.
The unfolding drama is now a major international story. Hundreds of journalists are here in a makeshift muddy village at the foot of the Nung Non mountain. Thai people have also flocked to the site from all over the country to do whatever they can to help. A 24-hour tent city in the middle of this remote location is feeding and supporting thousands of people involved in the operation. Almost everything is being freely supplied.
Everyone coming here, working long hours, hauling dirt, trying to, feed everyone and volunteer their time and probably their money and their expertise.
It's a sign that when the chips are down, I suppose, people of many nations can come and work together.
It's beautiful to see that. I can't even speak to the Thai leadership that we saw here in this operation, as well as to the people. I mean, it's such a beautiful culture. All the volunteers out there, giving their time. and their resources, and never losing hope.
The operation has shifted from search to rescue. A party of Thai Navy SEALs, including a medic, reaches the stranded boys, bringing food, water, heat blankets and medical supplies. Surprisingly, they only have minor injuries. Waiting above ground, the boys' mothers are overjoyed as they watch the video of their sons.
รู้สึกดีใจเจ้ายังดีใจว่าตีเขายังอยู่ปลอดภัยอะเจ้าดีใจเจ้าโหจะอู้จะเฮอเจ้าเพราะว่าต้องขอบคุณทุกคนตีช่วยลูกทุกคนเลยเจ้าขอบคุณเจ้า
ตาคิดถึงค่ะใจจะขาดเลย
What's it like diving up there and seeing all these kids huddled there with their coach?
The first time it was quite interesting. They all seemed, you know, in good spirits. Where they were was quite a desolate place. They've nowhere to go but that chamber. They've got to go to the toilet there. They've got to eat there, so the smell's quite bad. It's quite warm. The first day, me and myself and Chris went through to orientate ourselves with the cave. We went and visited them and chatted with them. Like I say, they had the 4 Navy SEALs in there, so they had somebody to sort of look after them. We took them gifts in from letters and gifts in from the parents, and we brought messages back. So it's quite a good experience for them and for us to sort of, you know, pass on messages from the outside world.
While the nation and the world celebrate the boys' survival, rescuers grapple with the enormous challenge of how to get them out. The search for alternative entry points to the cave has proved futile.
And we were trying to find any other way, because we knew the dive one was going to be the most dangerous, to find a way to get these kids out.
We've had hundreds, if not thousands, of the Thai military that we're linked in with, and they're not finding any other access points along the side. And we found all the caving experts that we could, and they all confirmed, no, that there's one way in and out of this cave, and that's at the front entrance of it. There is no other option.
The mission could not be more dangerous. The boys and their coach are 1 kilometre below the surface and 2.4 kilometres inside the notoriously treacherous cave.
The hardest thing is just trying to portray in words, you know, without physically being in the environment, like what some of these guys were up against. And talking to a lot of the experts, like that do cave diving as a hobby, we're like, man, this is one of the 5 most dangerous caves I've ever been in my career. And that was kind of, you know, the hair stands up on the back of your neck. And then on top of that, we need to get a bunch of people out. And on top of that, the water's cold. And on top of that, it's muddy. You have 0 visibility, so everything is feel. You know, as you might have to reach around and feel through different stalactites or rocks. And then there's parts of the cave where the water really speeds up, you know, it goes from narrow to thin. And trying to fit through there and to deal with some of those flows becomes very dangerous.
The option of leaving the boys where they are until after the monsoon season has been canvassed, but abandoned.
Some of the divers had an atmospheric monitor that was showing oxygen levels getting less and less, which is a huge concern for us, because one of the options was, hey, let's leave them in there for 4 months. So then that was not looking like the best option. And then the food alone, you know, we were able to get with a group of, you know, Thai and British divers some food back, but it was about 100 meals. But for 15 people, you know, 13 to 15 people, that wouldn't last very long. And then just looking at like the cleanliness, the hygiene, if they were to have any sort of an infection, like, so a lot of those initial, let's maybe try to wait out this water for 3, 4, 5 months became kind of unrealistic courses of action.
Military engineers worked through the night to install a kilometres-long cable to deliver oxygen into where the boys are stranded. But the idea is quickly abandoned as it's impractical. Pumps are in action draining water out of the cave, but heavy rains are forecast, which could quickly submerge the entire system. This is just one of a number of pumps brought in to try and get the water level inside the cave down. Some have come from as far as the United States, and without them, the rescue mission would be infinitely more dangerous.
The rain was still so much of a factor that every single pump was getting overwhelmed, and we were fighting Mother Nature trying to get this much water out. But it was really the understanding that the flow of water coming in and the lowering of the oxygen levels in chamber 9, that's what kind of forced us to a decision of, hey, we've got to do something now.
A contingent of Australian police and army personnel has been on the ground since early in the search. But it's 2 veteran cave divers from Australia who will play a critical role. They were about to go on holidays.
I'm all packed up, ready to go for a trip to the Nullarbor. Harry and I were on the way the next day, and so I had 45 minutes to head to the airport. So in that time I had to unpack everything that I had, reconfigure and get the gear that I needed for this trip and go.
Dr. Craig Challen is a recently retired Perth vet. His friend Harry is Dr. Richard Harris, an anaesthetist from Adelaide. They have dived together all over the world.
So we'd already been in contact with the British over the day leading up to this, and so we're broadly familiar with what was going on in the cave, and yeah, to be honest, not looking good at all. It's a long way in. You've got most of them don't even know how to swim, let alone dive, and we're all wondering how this is going to possibly work, and to be honest, the prospects are bleak.
On Friday, July 6, as Harris and Challen arrive at the rescue site, there is a tragedy. News breaks that a former Thai Navy SEAL involved in the operation has died. Petty Officer Salman Gunan had left the Navy but signed up to join the search as a volunteer. Salman had been delivering air canisters along the route being used by the divers in the cave. In a cruel twist, he lost consciousness after running out of air himself on the return dive.
การปฏิบัติงานมีความผิดพลาดเมื่อวานนี้พวกเราถ้าใครเห็นนะฮะพวกเรานั่งซึมกันทั้งค่ายนะฮะทุกคนเราไม่เคยรู้จักเขามาก่อนเป็นพี่เป็นน้องไม่เคยรู้จักแต่เขาเป็นหนึ่งในทีมเราเป็นหนึ่งในหมื่นกว่าคนที่เป็นทีมเราเขาเสียไปคุณสมานเสียไปเนี่ยเขามีภรรยานะฮะมีลูกเลี้ยงเราก็สงสารครอบครัวของเขานะครับเราก็นั่งซึมกันทั้งค่ายนะฮะเพราะฉะนั้นเราต้องมาปรับบทเรียนของเราพยายามเราไม่ให้มีเหตุการณ์อย่างนี้เกิดขึ้นอีกแต่ผมขออนุญาตใช้คำว่าพยายามนะฮะเราใช้ได้แต่เพียงคำว่าพยายาม
Obviously, you hear about the death of Salman Gunan, the Thai Navy SEAL. Does that reinforce the dangers, the risks of this mission?
There's absolutely no doubt that this is highly hazardous. Not so much for us, or we can look after ourselves because this is what we do, but for everybody else involved, and like the Thai Navy divers who are very highly capable guys, but this is not the environment that they're used to and that they're trained for.
Yeah, that was obviously a very sobering moment. We took a step back, we took an operational pause, we reassessed the risk that we were willing to accept, and at the same time we realized, okay, this doesn't change anything. We still have 12 kids and a coach in there. We still have to go forward and do this. So as tragic as that event was, and in my mind he's absolutely a hero of the Thai people and of the world, it didn't slow us down any. If anything, our resolve was strengthened, and like, hey, we're not going to let his loss, be in vain.
In the aftermath of the tragedy, the mood of the rescue changes. The short-lived elation after the boys were discovered has been replaced by a sense of crisis and grim determination.
Everyone else was starting to see the same exact logic trail that was very quickly becoming to the point that the dive option was the only option. And the Royal Thai Navy SEALs were able to get an audience with the Minister of the Interior. And they were able to do that because we feel like we had a pretty decent plan. And when we went and briefed the Minister of the Interior, we just laid it out to him in a very logical sequence. I told him that, sir, the eyes of the world are watching us. We've got 12 kids and a soccer coach that are trapped here. We've got emotions at a significant level here. And unfortunately, in these type situations, emotions are not your friend. Emotions are not helping us to make sound decisions. And I told the Minister of the Interior, sir, we are looking at this only from a logical standpoint. We're trying to remove all emotion. But now we're getting to the point where we only had one option. And if we did not make the choice to dive, then the circumstances surrounding the situation would make the decision for us. And I think they absolutely saw the logic of that, because very soon after that the Thai SEALs told us, hey, you know, it's approved, so we're going to go in and we're going to do this.
At that point, we started to do rehearsals. You know, we did rehearsals of concept where we would stage out exactly how we thought the cave was. We would have water bottles as tanks, and we would have them labeled, and we knew that our chances would be better if we started doing non-standard stuff like filling up a scuba tank but putting 80% oxygen in it instead of standard room air. And then we looked at the actual, will these full face masks fit? Will these wetsuits fit? How are we going to have their flotation or buoyancy compensators, you know? So we had actual volunteer children, and the Thais were able to secure a pool at a school, and we went there and we actually dry rehearsed where we had divers and children wearing the equipment they were going to use for the rescue, practice swimming underwater, practice handing them off, going through all these details and trying to basically game out to the best of our ability what we could do to ensure that when it was actually the decision was made and they said, yeah, we want to enact this plan, that we could say, yeah, you know, to the best of our ability, we have rehearsed everything collectively as a community, and we're going to give ourselves the best shot, even though we know this is high risk.
Did you have any role in preparing them for the journey out?
Yeah, we'd get out of the water in the chamber, talk to them about what was involved. We would get out and kit them up with the correct kit, because we had to bring the kit in from outside each day. So we'd have to bring a wetsuit in. They get into the wetsuit. We put them in a buoyancy jacket, bring them down to the water, put them in the full face mask and check that the seal was good and make sure they were breathing okay. So we're fully involved in the whole operation.
As preparations for the rescue move into their final stage, everyone's morale is boosted when letters written by the boys to their families and brought out by British divers are released. Taking the messages back from the children out. That must have given you a good feeling, because this is the first sort of contact they've had.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was just impromptu. Nobody asked me to bring any messages out, but I had a wet notes pad, just a pad with waterproof paper, and I just thought, here, write a message to your parents, write it on this pad, and I'll take it out. So, you know, we never knew what was going to happen. We never knew that we were going to get them out, so I thought it was important, at least for them, to be able to send a message out to the parents. Maybe just to put the parents' minds at rest, to say, you know, I'm not doing too badly under the circumstances.
Mom and Dad, I love you. If I can get out, please take me to eat crispy pork.
I am fine. It is a bit cold, but don't worry. Please don't forget my birthday.
I am happy the SEAL team is taking care of us very well.
I miss you all. I really want to get out so much.
And this from their devoted coach, Ekapol Juntawong.
Dear all parents, we are fine. The rescue team is taking care of us very well. I promise that I will take best care of the boys. Thanks for all your support, and I apologize to all parents. Please tell grandmother to make pork crackling with dipping sauce for me. I will go and eat when I get out. Love you all.
Where they were at that time, at that moment, they were quite comfortable, but it was only myself and Chris that knew what was coming in terms of the weather. And, you know, in a few days' time, it might not be so comfortable, but obviously we didn't say that to them.
What did you think of the way those kids behaved and comported themselves?
Really strong, you know, composure. We told them about the plan, the vague details of the plan that how we'd have to dive them out, and none of them were whimpering or crying or anything. They just accepted what we were going to do. Yeah, real mental strength from them, and which is really surprising considering their ages.
Saturday afternoon, and Harry and I are going in to look at the boys and the coach and see what sort of state they're in, and very pleasantly surprised really about that. I mean, they're really keeping in good spirits. They've got the 4 Thai Navy SEALs in with them, and those guys just did a fantastic job of looking after the boys and keeping morale up. So everything was looking really good in there. They've had a few days of being fed after their 9 days without any food and very little water. So that aspect of it is good, but some of them are pretty small and fragile. A couple of them are only 30 kilos, so they're tiny little things, really. They're starting to get cold after that time of exposure. It was fairly warm in the cave, about 23 degrees, but over time, the dampness and that temperature just eats away at you, and they're starting to chill down, and all they had was the T-shirts and shorts that they went in with, so they didn't have much exposure protection.
How was it decided who goes out first, who goes out in what batch, and when did the coach come out?
So that was up to the boys and the coach and the Thai Navy. We told them what was going to happen and said, you choose your best men, and out they come. So it was nothing to do with us.
All strengths or weaknesses.
Harry did not choose them, as has been suggested. So I think it was the bravest guys that came out first.
So the risk level was incredibly high, and in my mind, the possibility, the probability of success was about as low as you can get.
So you thought there's no chance of getting the 13 out?
I didn't think that there was no chance, but when I was flat out asked, what do you think the probability of success was, I told the governor I thought maybe a 60 or 70% chance. So I was fully expecting that we would accept casualties, maybe 3, 4, possibly 5 would die.
It's now Sunday, the 8th of July. The 12 boys and their coach have been trapped for 15 days. The conditions are getting worse as the monsoon closes in. There's a growing sense that it's now or never.
ความพร้อมถึงพีคสุดละวันนี้เราปฏิบัติการดีเดย์นะครับเมื่อ 10 โมงที่ผ่านมาเจ้าหน้าที่ดำน้ำผู้เชี่ยวชาญดำน้ำถ้ำจำนวน 13 คนนะครับได้เข้าไปปฏิบัติการเพื่อช่วยชีวิตน้องๆเขาออกมานะครับแล้วก็ซีลไทยอีก 5 คนนะครับปฏิบัติโดยมีการ assignment ชัดเจนว่าเราจะเข้าไปอย่างไรแล้วก็จะกู้ชีพกู้ภัยน้องเขาออกมาอย่างไร
What about you, given your experience in your own mind as a cave diver? Were you 100% confident they'd all make it out? How did you feel?
No, the first operation, so when it was a 3-day operation, the first operation, I was always confident we could get them out. It was getting them out alive.
นะครับผบ.เหตุการณ์นะครับใช้คำสั่งนี้ตามกฎหมายนะครับก็ขอเชิญทุกท่านนะครับที่ไม่เกี่ยวข้องตามที่ผมได้ประกาศนะครับออกนอกพื้นที่ตั้งแต่เวลานี้นะครับตั้งแต่เวลานี้
The Thai authorities order anyone not involved in the rescue operation to leave the area. The media is moved 500 metres away from the operation centre.
We're packing up everything.
นะครับขอยืนยันว่าน้องทั้ง 13 คนมีความพร้อมทางด้านร่างกายสูงมากนะครับจิตใจสูงมากเด็ดเดี่ยวมุ่งมั่น ทั้ง 13 คนรับทราบภารกิจที่เราจะปฏิบัติแล้ว
As night falls, a fleet of ambulances arrive. There's 13 of them, one for each of the boys and their coach. The task of bringing the boys out will be the responsibility of a team of 13 foreign divers and 5 Thai Navy SEALs. It will take them 3 hours to make their way through the narrow, dark passages to reach the boys.
The main issue is, are these guys going to be taught to dive and dive out, or are they going to come out as a package and we're going to do everything for them? And it's really the former option wasn't going to be possible because of the language barriers and the fact that they're so young and so small. So they were going to have the whole thing done for them. So this is where the boys are here in Chamber 9.
Yep.
So there's a hill here.
Craig Challen will play a key role along the route of the rescue. But it is the unique skills of his friend, the anaesthetist Dr. Harris, that will be critical to the success of the mission. And how are you keeping the boys calm?
Yeah, so they did have some sedation to keep them calm, because the worst thing that could happen would be one of those guys panicking. And if you put me in a full face mask with no previous experience and dragged me out of a cave for it's about a 3-hour trip, then I would be terrified and probably panicking as well. Yep, they were calmed down a bit.
Were they totally calm?
The best, yeah.
Yeah, so
yep.
They were basically given an anaesthetic to knock them out. And take it.
Yeah, they were. There wasn't very much activity there.
An official source has told Four Corners that the Australian government negotiated immunity from Thai authorities for any Australian involved in the sedation of the kids, just in case something went wrong. The rescue operation is an incredible feat of planning and coordination.
So we kind of divided the cave up to make it easier into 9 areas, right? 9 sections, the mouth of the cave, and then you came down into 1, and then we had chambers 1 through 3 that were a little bit larger and more technical with ropes. The really, really complicated spots were taken by British divers that were, just extremely 30 years plus of experience. And we did that, knowing that certain people have different strengths and expertises, and so that's kind of how we task organized the entire team. And there was upwards of 150 people, from Chamber 9 to the entrance of the cave, all working as one big team with many different responsibilities.
My role was one of the what we call recovery divers, so I would take a kid from Chamber 9 and bring him the whole way out. So with the diving, we'd submerge with the kid. And it depending how the line laid, we'd either have them on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, either holding the back or holding the chest, either face here, depending if we were likely to hit the roof or not, or if we could see what was going on, we'd hold them out a little bit further. Swimming through the sump, the first day, reasonable visibility, I could see sort of a metre in front of me, so I didn't have to hold on to the line. By the last day, it was nil visibility, so it was much more mentally exhausting, and I had to have the lad really close to me, because if he didn't, you were bashing his head against the rocks, whereas if I had my head quite close to him and I extended my head above him, my head was bashing the rocks first, so the visibility was that bad you couldn't see the rock until you actually hit it. So each section of flooded section was a much slower process when the visibility was bad.
I'm one of the divers, so where the boys are, there's a diving passage of about 350 metres. Then they come out of the water, have to have all the gear taken off them and get carried over some passage and then get back into the water again. That's about 200 metres or so over some rock piles, pulling them through a sump. And so I was at that stage de-kitting them after the first small dive, transporting them across that, getting their full face masks and all their the dive gear back on again and getting them sent off with the divers.
So after the first flooded section, there was quite a long dry section. We had guys there with a stretcher. So as soon as he came out of the water, he'd be into a stretcher and what we call a drag stretcher. So you can drag it along the ground to the next sump. And so Harry would send them on the way. We'd dive them through the first flooded section where the drag stretcher was. Craig would assess them, make sure they were okay for the next part of the journey, assess them through the dry section until they get to the next sump, give us the okay that it was okay to continue.
There were certain areas that involved floating them. There were certain areas that involved diving them, swimming them. If we have 2 rescuers per child, and ensuring that just at all times, if there weren't 2, there was 1 always holding on to the child.
So you physically got a grip on the child and you've got to then pass off to another diver. The visibility is that terrible, and I suppose the pinch points are terrible as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier, it's not one section of the cave. Like, there was also sections where we had harnesses for the children, improvised harnesses, and there was huge 150 sections of high line where we would have them, placed on the high line and maneuvered across these very, very steep caverns where we knew trying to walk them all the way down back into these muddy areas and tight areas would be real dangerous.
They had a full face mask on. So it was basically that one thing that if the mask that they were using became dislodged and water entered that mask and it couldn't get it out, that was the one thing that would kill them. You got to a section, the vertical section I was talking about, and by that time you've been in the system for 5 hours. You don't remember where the vertical section is, and the only time you find about it is when your head bangs against the wall there and you're trying to get yourself through this vertical section, but you can't remember exactly how it's laid out. So I'm trying to get myself through it, but I'm also trying to get a kid through it who's sort of horizontally in the water, trying to post him through. No, that doesn't work. Pulling back, trying to post myself through, that doesn't work. And you could spend several minutes at just one obstacle to try and find your way through. And eventually we did it, but it's a very slow process and quite daunting.
Did you feel in control the whole time, or were there
I was in
moments?
control in terms of I knew I always could get myself out. I knew as long as I didn't. The main thing is you always got to keep in contact with that guideline. If you lose the guideline, you're in a lot of trouble. So I was confident of getting myself out. I was confident of not losing control of the line. I was confident of getting the kid out. I wasn't 100% confident of getting him out of alive, because if we bashed him against the rock too hard and it dislodged that mask and flooded his mask, he was a goner. So that's why we had to be very slow and careful about not banging them against rocks.
16 วันแห่งการรอคอยนะครับวันนี้เราเห็นหน้าหมูป่าแล้วนะครับแต่ปฏิบัติการวันนี้ประสบความสำเร็จมากกว่าที่คาดนะครับน้องคนแรกออกมาผ่านโถงของถ้ำและพ้นถ้ำตอนประมาณ 17:40
The news that the first 4 of the boys have been rescued and brought to safety is met with mixed emotions, as the anxious families watch and wait to learn who has been saved. For some, there is elation. For others, more anxious waiting.
จะเป็นอะไรไหมเราก็คิดว่าเขาไม่เป็นอะไรแต่เราก็รู้แต่ไม่กล้าพูดคิดอยู่ในใจคนเดียวก็อยู่นิ่งๆเฉยๆอ่ะโหโลก็ไม่ได้นะกินอะไรก็ไม่ได้เหมือนกัน
Look, it was a pretty hard day, but we've had a fantastic outcome. They're all in hospital. They're all doing well, and we're trying not to get ourselves a false sense of comfort, and it could all still go horribly wrong, and in fact in some ways it'd be worse for everyone involved if we'd had some good outcomes and then it started to go wrong. So we're still pretty toey. At this stage everybody's been diving for multiple days, and they're quite big days in the cave as well, so it's starting to get a little bit tired. ready for a rest, but we've got the pressure that we know the rain is coming.
My concern was that we would become complacent because, yes, it was huge. I mean, we just hit a home run, 4 for 4. You can't get any better than that. But in my mind, the risk level didn't go down any at all.
So it was a short celebration and then right back to staying focused, staying professional and ensuring that we continue to drive on because we knew that that was just a small success and an overall bigger mission. And we knew that if the rain got to levels where it was before, that the rescue operation would probably come to an end because it would just be too risky, and at that point you're risking a lot of the health of the rescuers too, and so it was absolutely a race against time.
Less than 24 hours later, the seemingly miraculous feat is repeated. After a second rescue expedition by a team of 18 divers, another 4 boys are brought safely out of the cave.
Second day, when we had another 4 for 4, we pulled everybody aside and said, this does not change a thing. We are not going to lower our vigilance. We're not going to lower our attention to detail. If anything, I briefed to the UK dive team, hey, we've just gotten, after the second day, we've gotten 8 for 8. You guys are absolute rock stars. This is going to go down in history.
With 8 of the boys out, only their coach and 4 others remain trapped. The dive teams are regrouping, re-equipping and re-energising, preparing for one final push. We've just heard in the last hour or so that the 9th and 10th boys have been brought out, and the news just coming through now is that the 11th boy is in the cave with 2 divers shepherding him through the narrow corridors. The 11th boy soon emerges, and there's news the coach is also free. As night falls, only 1 boy remains inside the cave. 3 Thai Navy SEALs and the Australian doctor Richard Harris are with him. They will stay until the very end. Obviously, being an Australian, I should ask you about Harry Harris. How did he perform?
Brilliant, really. He was the linchpin of the whole operation. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. His bedside manner when he was there with the kids and that, talking to them, calming them down and stuff like that. He was the one that sort of sent them on the way, and we were just the transporters. So, yeah, he was the linchpin of the operation.
Well, the news is filtering out unofficially at this stage that all 13 members of the wild boar soccer team are out of the cave, that this rescue mission has been an unrivaled success, that this is a miracle rescue. The 18-day vigil is over. 5 out the last night.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. How did you feel when you finally got that last member of the team?
Quite emotional, as we were getting closer and closer to the entrance, I got quite emotional. I don't normally, it's just what we were doing must have come out. And I've got a kid myself now, so it was quite a good feeling.
You had the last group of people come out, and then we knew all 4 Thai SEALs came out, and everybody was all standing there around 10 o'clock at night. And we actually took a moment and let the emotions come back in, and I think that it really kind of hit you in the feels, and we were like, man, we just accomplished something as a huge team. It took all these different people coming together, and I think that the world was watching one way or another,
Enormous sense of relief. And this is when it's good for the divers because we get to just walk out of the cave and go home. Everybody else still had a lot of work to do. The Thai Navy guys still had to swim out, so they were another 2 to 3 hours behind.
The soccer team is safe, but there's a final moment of drama for the rescuers still inside the cave.
Yeah, I don't know if it was kind of a supernatural intervening, but one of the pumps back at Chamber 3 failed, and we had a fair amount of guys out there waiting for the last group of SEALs to come out, and we got the call, hey, water levels are rising fast. That was definitely a spike of adrenaline towards the end of the night.
For the Thai authorities who led this mission, it is a dream result.
ทีมไทยแลนด์ทีมราชการพร้อมเอกชนทีมสื่อมวลชนที่ช่วยกับเรารวมทั้งกำลังใจของทั่วโลกเราทำในสิ่งที่ไม่มีใครคาดคิดว่าเราทำได้เป็นครั้งแรกในโลกเป็นความภาคภูมิใจเป็นมิชชั่น possible ของทีมไทยแลนด์ที่ทำได้
The 12 boys and their soccer coach are recovering in hospital, still seemingly unaware that the whole world has been watching.
We went to the hospital to see them yesterday. It's a really good experience. Yeah, they're all sitting up and happy and eating. Words cannot describe how happy we were. Yeah, it honestly was not a result that we thought we would get. We were, we thought there was a very real prospect that we would be doing body recoveries rather than live patient extractions from there. And as I say, I'm still pinching myself a little bit, wondering if that's really what happened. It does seem too good to be true.
I remember when we were first here and some of our tough guys were saying, like, I don't even know if I could survive. Like, these are kids. And for me, it's like it just showcases these children's will to live, as well as to, the coach that provided that guidance. And yeah, I mean, these are some brave individuals, and I really do know that they're going to go down in history for the courage they showed.
It's one of the most difficult and dangerous and risky things I've ever done. Not in terms of my own personal safety, but in terms of the people I was responsible for. I've never done anything as risky as that, and I don't think I ever will again. But it was the only option we had, and we took it.
In a world full of bad news, how good is this?
This is awesome. We're so incredibly overjoyed that not only is it a good news story, but at the end of the day, we got the kids back together with their parents, and that's what matters in my mind.
Hello, I'm adult. Now I'm very fine. I'm very thank you so helpful. Thank you so much.